be easy to overlook the most important one of all, money, which is a good reason to open an AZ 529 education savings plan. Whether you invest $15 or $150 a month, your money grows tax-free. By the time your little one is ready for college, vocational school, or workforce training, they'll have all the savings they need to get the job of their dreams. Visit az529.gov to get started.
This message is sponsored by the Office of the Arizona State Treasurer.
Let's say you've got questions. You're looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Well, Harmon Solar has the answers. Hi, I'm Jeffrey O'Brien, and listen, there's a couple of ways you can go here. One, visit harmonsolar.com, browse around, because right across the page, they got links to all sorts of great information, like frequently asked questions, equipment, tax credits, even testimonials. Or just give them a call, 800-281-3189. Ask them directly. They'd love to hear from you. That's 800-281-3189. Or just go to harmonsolar.com.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM. Wherever you go, take us along. Listen to our live stream on our free Fanatic app. Download it today.
And we are back. It is Beat the Book on a Thursday afternoon, which means a few things. We've got football a little bit later today. The college football playoff returns. It is the semifinals. We've got Notre Dame. We've got Penn State. That's today. And then, of course, we've got Ohio State and Texas. That's tomorrow. We'll discuss that then. But we'll get into Notre Dame and Penn State today. We'll also talk about the AFC matchups going on this weekend. Because we've got a lot of football to talk about. We'll get to the NFC tomorrow as well. Then we've got some games to recap, and Dylan will talk about how the picks went yesterday. We've got some big basketball games that went down. Of course, we'll break that down a little bit. And the Jimmy Butler drama continues as the basketball turns. And the more the basketball turns, the more it seems to somehow involve the Phoenix Suns. So we'll give you the latest on that as well. We'll talk about the Trailblazers and Mavs tonight, GCU and Utah Valley tonight. That'll wrap up the show for us. And excuse me, I said that we were going to do Texas and Ohio State tomorrow. We'll do that today also. My bad. So we'll get to that. But I'm Keon Rose. Alongside me, our betting expert Dylan Cohen. We are broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios in sunny Uptown Scottsdale. And you are on the text line 888-368-1580. By the way, paging Whiskey Tailgate Friend. Whiskey Tailgate Friend. You won the Cardinals win probability contest for the final week of the season, and I haven't been able to get your information from you, sir. Go ahead and send that to me, and I will pass that along to Dylan, and Dylan will pass that along to Sport Trade, and so you can get your $100 Amazon gift card and your $50 in Sport Trade betting credits. So just pass that along there. But before we get to any and all of those things, Dylan, who powers the show?
That would be Sport Trade. Make sure you download Sport Trade on your smartphone and use promo code 1580 to take advantage of their 10% cashback promotion on all of the wagers that you place in your first week. And obviously, do not miss out on Beat the Book tomorrow. That is when Alex Kane, the CEO of Sport Trade, will be back on the show to roll out the next edition of the Sport Trade win probability contest. So if you have been participating in this and you have not, won yet, or if, perhaps you're hearing this for the first time and you like the opportunity to win a $100 Amazon gift card as well as $50 in cash sent to your Sport Trade account to play some extra wagers with, then make sure you tune in tomorrow. And Alex is going to be going over the rules of how the contest is going to work. It will still be based on a NFL game. It's not going to be based on the Arizona Cardinals. They are no longer in the playoffs. So you'll have to stick around and hear about how that's going to work tomorrow. Now, with all that being said, this is Beat the Book. We also run a website where we are putting out bets to make each day. So if you check out this website, there's going to be 10 individual bets posted. You can use those in any way you want. You can straight bet them. You can parlay them. Those are all, different player props or, major market bets that we like. Feel free to use that. We also offer a long shot parlay of the day. You'll find that towards the bottom of the post. And if you want to check out all of these bets, just search in your browser Beat the Book Fanatic, or you can do Beat the Book Dylan Cohen. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Likewise, you can follow me on Instagram. The tag for the Instagram account is at Beat the Book Fanatic, all spelled out. And then if you hit the link in the bio, that'll take you right to the Beat the Book website so you can see what the expert betting picks are for the day. Now, going back to yesterday's picks, out of the 10 that were posted, 6 of them won, 1 of them pushed, and 3 of them lost. So pretty solid day. And in particular, there were a few different picks given out on the marquee NBA game that was on last night. We had a showdown between the top teams in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. It was a possible NBA Finals preview. The Cleveland Cavaliers faced off against the Oklahoma City Thunder. This game took place in Cleveland, and this was a fun one. This game, tons of lead changes. No one really ever got ahead. No one was ever up double digits. So really just entertaining through and through. The Cleveland Cavaliers did come out of this victorious. They won, final score 129-122. And the number one pick yesterday from Beat the Book was to take the Cavs on the money line. So hopefully you followed that advice and you were able to win and beat the book using that. But also, too, hopefully
you might have had to sweat that one out, but it was worth it
a little bit, and at least the final 5 minutes, it wasn't the worst sweat. It could have been a lot
true.
Worse. You could have been on Hawks money line the other night, where
you're going down to the wire and a half court shot saves you. Yeah.
So, in this case, and what I was really proud of actually was Jared Allen, starting center on the Cleveland Cavaliers. One of the top player prop bets that I posted yesterday was to take his over on points. In the morning, his line was, about 11.5. I think it went up to 12.5 or possibly 13.5 before tip off. But Jared Allen had a huge game. He scored 25 points. And I didn't have an opportunity to shout this out on the air, but one of the reasons why I really liked him to score yesterday, and this is something to keep in mind because these two teams are going to face off again in, I think, like a week. Jared Allen has scored every single game that he's ever played in his career against the Oklahoma City Thunder, going back the last 5 seasons, all the way to the 2019 season. Every single game, he scored at least 12 points or more. So when his line was 11.5, I was like, oh, easy over. There you go.
That feels good.
That feels good. And look, I mean, he ended up being the star of the show. I mean, 25 points. It's not that Jared Allen isn't capable of doing those things. He's only a few years removed from being in the All-Star game. But it's something that you don't tend to see from him very often just because there's a number of weapons on that Cleveland Cavaliers offense. On any given night, they could have a different guy leading that team in scoring. And to that point, I mean, Jared Allen had to shoot 9 of 11 field goals to get that 25 points. So very, very efficient night from him. And then
those Twin Towers, man, that's and Allen and Mobley together is, I don't know what you do there. I just genuinely don't have a clue. I think maybe, you're not shorthanded if you're Oklahoma State and Oklahoma City, and you're playing with maybe Chet out there as well, and you could probably throw Hartenstein and Chet at him. But without Chet, that is a problem.
And to that point, I mean, that was exactly why I really liked Cleveland on the money line last night. I mean, Oklahoma City without Chet Holmgren, an extremely competitive team, obviously worthy of being the top team in the Western Conference. When they get Chet back into the fold, they're going to really kick it up a notch, and it's going to put the entire rest of the NBA on notice. So, if Chet is not back in time for that second game that Oklahoma City plays against the Cavs may still have the upper hand there. And that kind of almost seems to be sort of the future of the NBA in terms of, what's going to make you the most competitive when you're building out a roster is find me like 2 dynamic 7-footers. One of them can be maybe a little bit more traditional center. His game typically sticks closer to the basket, but then you have to have another one that has an outside game and then is also, high energy, aggressive. That's what the Cavs have with Evan Mobley. And together it is a dynamic duo. And then you just litter a bunch of shooters, around the perimeter with those 2 guys inside. And it just creates a dynamic that is very difficult to beat. So very good, hard-earned win for the Cavs last night. And the Cavs are playing again today, second night of a back-to-back. They are taking on the Toronto Raptors at home. This should be a pretty easy win for the Cavs, but do not be surprised if you find the Raptors to be a bit competitive in this one, just because the Raptors are finally healthy this season. They had been struggling out the gate for the first 3 months of the season, really, of just, suffering tons of injuries, never had their starting lineup available until very recently. So I think it's possible the Raptors might actually be able to keep this game close tonight, but the Cavaliers should be able to get the job done and continue to, rack up those home wins. They have a 19-1 record at home right now, going for 20-1 later on tonight. Now, we should probably transition over here, Keon, to some of the NFL playoffs that are going on, because, we want to be able to pay attention to, what's going to be happening this weekend. And we just don't have a whole lot of time to kind of go over absolutely everything that's going to be going on. And we can't push all this stuff off until Friday. So we're going to start to get into some of it today. And the way that we're going to do this is we are going to focus on the AFC playoff matchups today, and then we're going to get into the NFC playoff matchups tomorrow. And what we'll do is we'll just kind of go through each matchup here. We'll, shout out what team we like to win, if there's any particular way you should bet that game. And then, of course, if there's any player props that, are going to be worth paying attention to here. Keon, let's start with the LA Chargers and the Houston Texans game. What are your initial thoughts on that matchup? Because right now, the way that this game is priced, just taking a look at FanDuel here, this game it's very close on the line. The Chargers are a 2.5-point favorite, but this game is going to be played in Houston. So the Texans have the, home field advantage. Which way are you leaning on this one, Keon?
Yeah, this is one of those games I actually kind of waffled back and forth on quite a bit, in large part because, when you look at what the Texans are defensively, that's their biggest strength. They are one of the better teams in football against the run. We know that that's what the Chargers want to do. And if you can keep the Chargers in front of you, limit them, then you're able to keep Justin Herbert kind of contained. And I think that that's going to be, a big factor in this game. I'm worried about the Texans on the offensive side of the ball, though. Last year, you look at how good CJ Stroud was on outside throws outside the numbers, closer to the sidelines, those outbreaking routes. He was spectacular on those throws. This year, he's kind of come back to average. He really has struggled making those throws. He's been just fine throwing to the middle of the field, but if you force him to throw it to the sideline, the level of accuracy that he showed a year ago just has not been there. And I do think that this Chargers defense has enough to take that away from him. So I'm really, really concerned about, what the Texans can do on both sides of the ball. But I think that if the Texans win this game, it's going to be because of their defense and what they're able to get done. But I'm taking the Chargers in this game. And I think in large part because when you look at what the Texans have struggled with, while they've been great against the run, they've been bad against stopping quarterbacks from running the football. And you don't think of Justin Herbert as a running quarterback typically, but Justin Herbert has been running the football more this year because who's his offensive coordinator? Greg Roman. Once upon a time, coached Lamar Jackson. Once upon a time, coached Colin Kaepernick with Jim Harbaugh. Like, this is just something that they want to do, and it helps them stop that blitz from teeing off on Herbert. If they can get Herbert outside the numbers, get some designed runs in there, I'm not saying he's going to have an all-time rushing performance, but if I took a look at what the rushing numbers were for Herbert, you could probably look to take the over in that, just because I think that Greg Roman's going to look to involve his legs. I think there's also going to be some scrambles available for Herbert as well. I think his legs are actually probably one of the most important parts of the offense for this team. I know what they can do throwing the football. They've been very successful at it. The last 3 weeks of the season, the Chargers have looked great. And I know, they did play the Panthers and they did play the Raiders in that last 3-game stretch, but they also took on another tough defense in the Broncos there at the end. And he looked very good against that team. And the Broncos, I think, have the best defense in the league right now. So I think that when you're combining those things, that and the fact that Greg Roman has been much more willing to use the play action game for Justin Herbert, that also keeps that pass rush at bay and keeps them from teeing off on Herbert. If they're able to do that, they're able to use Herbert's legs. They're able to use the play action game. I really think that they have a shot at making the Texans defense, which is normally a really good defense, look like a below average one. So I'll be taking the Chargers in this, and I'll be taking Justin Herbert to run the football a little bit.
Well, and I just happened to pull up the line on Justin Herbert rushing props right now. So for player rushing yards, Justin Herbert, his line is over under 20.5. Doesn't feel that high.
It doesn't feel that high, no. And especially when you look at the Texans. The Texans are a top 5 defense against the run. They are actually third from last when it comes to stopping quarterbacks in particular, and only the Panthers and only the Raiders are worse than them. So, if Greg Roman leans into that and he's shown a willingness to do that and trust Herbert with that, then I think that this is a Chargers game pretty easily.
I have to second that. I definitely like the Chargers as well. And what's winning it over for me is just really looking at how well these teams have performed as of recently. I think that's something that kind of gets very commonly swept under the rug, but it's important to take a look at. And you've got the Chargers coming off 3 straight wins. And look, I mean, the last 2 of those, that was against, kind of the bottom of the barrel NFL teams. I get it. You look at the Texans. They are 1-2 in their last 3 games. 2 of those losses coming against some of the elite teams in the AFC. But there's still something to account for in one team on a 3-game winning streak, now coming into the postseason versus another team that, had to scrap a little bit just to get over the Tennessee Titans in their, regular season finale. But then going back to the play from Justin Herbert has really just elevated his play over those last 3 games. So last 3 games straight, he has thrown for over 280 passing yards in every single game. You take a look at his rushing yards, and in 2 out of 3 of the last games, he's rushed for 28 or more yards. So I think Justin Herbert is really just kind of hitting his stride at the right time. The team is starting to build some momentum. And yes, this game is on the road, but you have a masterful head coach in Jim Harbaugh, someone that has been in this situation a number of times, going back to his tenure as the 49ers head coach. This is someone that knows how to navigate a team through the postseason, and I just like the experience that he brings into this matchup. So I'm going to be siding with the Chargers as well. I like them on the money line. They could honestly cover that spread. I mean, it's only 2.5. I don't see any reason why this couldn't maybe come down to a final field goal, and Jim Harbaugh is kind of playing that game right, and his team is the one that's taking the field goal to win on the road.
Yeah, or I think they could win by a touchdown. I wouldn't say more than that because I do think that the Texans are going to fire back, but I think they could win by a touchdown, and I think be in control of this game for the most part. So we can take a look at the Steelers and the Ravens next. I like this matchup probably the best of all the AFC ones that we've got coming up so far, because anytime the Steelers and the Ravens get together, it's just good football, and it's just fun football. And we were talking about the number before the show that this game is 9.5 point spread in favor of the Baltimore Ravens, which is kind of wild. It's a very big number for a playoff game, but more to the point, it's a very big number for these 2 teams matching up together. Whenever John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin get together, the underdog covers almost every time. And certainly the last 4 times in a row that this has happened, that's exactly how it's gone down. And you're taking Zay Flowers away from the Baltimore Ravens, which I think he is the deep threat. He is the guy that would have been the person to break the Steelers, I think, early. If there was a way for the Ravens to run away with this thing, it would be Zay Flowers. He has been ruled out for Sunday. He's not playing. And the Steelers like to play a lot of single high coverage. So there's a way for the Steelers now to play the kind of football they're normally used to playing without having to worry about the one guy that's going to break their defense and what they want to do. You don't necessarily want to play man coverage against Zay Flowers. It's a bad idea. Now, the Ravens still have a bunch of other weapons. When you look at what their offense appears to run through since about week 8, week 9 of this season, the offense appears to run through, as far as the passing game goes, Mark Andrews of all people. So they're still going to have their production, but Mark Andrews isn't a deep threat. So they're going to be really working the intermediate to short passing game. The Ravens do a really good job with the quick game, and I think that that's going to help too. But when you look at what the Steelers want to do, I think that they're going to turn to their quick passing game. When you looked at what Russell Wilson was able to do against the Ravens the last time that they played, Russell Wilson 10 for 10 when they were in their hurry up, no huddle offense. And when he was throwing to the seam, he was 13 of 13 perfect passer rating against this Ravens defense. And I know the Ravens defense is more improved than it was at that time, but the Steelers have a way to fight back here, is what I'm trying to say. And that 9.5 number, I don't think you should let that fool you into thinking that the Ravens are going to blow the Steelers out. That doesn't happen in these games, but I'm still going to take the Ravens. I'm a little worried with the Zay Flowers thing, but I just think that, you're able to run the football with Derrick Henry. It's a tough thing to do against the Steelers, but if you can establish the run, you open up things for Lamar Jackson with his legs and his arm. And of course, Isaiah Likely is a threat on the offensive side of the ball for the Ravens as well. So I think the Ravens have more firepower, but the Steelers have enough going for them that this game's going to be pretty close.
Well, the way that the line is set on this right now on FanDuel, Ravens are a 9.5 point favorite, minus 550 on the money line. Steelers are plus 410 on the money line, so paying just a little bit over 4-1 there. And I have to agree with just about everything you said. I at first, before Zay Flowers was ruled out, I did see some value in potentially the Ravens just running up a huge spread.
Yeah.
But him missing this game, I think that changes things completely. And you can't count out Mike Tomlin's ability to keep his teams competitive in these high stakes games. It'd probably go a much longer way if this was being played in Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. But either way, Mike Tomlin has been the head coach of the Steelers for a long time. He's played many games on the road in Baltimore, particularly ones that are high stakes, playoff matchups just like this. And he's actually never had the chance to do that yet with a veteran Super Bowl champion quarterback and Russell Wilson. And this is the time of year where we're going to see, miraculous performances, things that just do not line up with, where guys generally are with their stats on paper.
And by the way, Russell Wilson did not look bad the last time that they played each other, and he did not have George Pickens that game. He does have Pickens back now. I don't know how much Pickens plays. Him and Tomlin are butting heads right now. I don't know what that looks like, but Pickens does help. He does put pressure on that Ravens defense.
So I have to say at this point, I mean, Ravens at minus 550 money line, not a whole lot of value there. More value on counting on the Steelers to cover a spread. But if you wanted to give yourself a little bit of just kind of comfortability on that spread, you could take an alternate spread on the Steelers. You could do it at 10.5, just to, give yourself double digits. That's minus 130. That would be a nice leg on a, parlay potentially. If you wanted to go all the way to plus 14.5, give yourself 2 touchdowns. That's minus 220. It's not terrible. So those are the things that I would keep in mind there. And then also too, Mark Andrews has absolutely been just been receiving a ton of attention from Lamar Jackson recently. It's just been very noticeable over the last few weeks.
He's caught a touchdown in each of his last 6 games.
So, and then, you take away Zay Flowers, you think about who's going to be the guy catching the ball. I would be putting my money on Mark Andrews player props, receiving yards to score anytime touchdown. This would be the time to bank on that, relationship.
Yeah, bank on that, but also bank on Likely a little bit, because likely for a tight end is so athletic. He does have the ability to stretch a defense, and if he's going one-on-one against the safety, he's big enough to challenge. And then he's got the not just the size advantage, but he's also got a little bit of a speed advantage sometimes too. So I think Likely can also probably get you something there as well.
His line is pretty low, 27.5 on the receiving yards right now.
It's a little boomer bust. Like, there is a possibility Likely just doesn't even factor, but if he does, he might go off. Like, it's just one of those, if you like him in this game, I would take him in a lot of things.
So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there. I know we're kind of up against a break here, but I think we could probably knock this one out pretty fast. Bills Broncos. I like the Bills.
I like the Bills too. I'll be quick, but I'll try to be a little bit more specific than that, because it's obviously Josh Allen is the factor here. When you look at this Broncos defense, I think that's the argument you would have for the Broncos in this game. And I do think that when you look at what the Broncos like to do, they like to put Patrick Surtain on your best receiver and then just shut you off. And a lot of teams in this league can't handle that. Put Patrick Surtain on Amari Cooper. I'm sorry, is Khalil Shakir still there? Is Keon Coleman still there? I especially like Keon Coleman because, Patrick Surtain is the best corner in football right now. But, Riley Moss is the next corner down, and he's a good corner, but he's not he's not in that same elite level. And we saw T. Higgins when the Bengals played them. Just T. Higgins just gave him that work. And now you're saying, well, what if we put Keon Coleman against Riley Moss and have him go up against him? Well, Keon Coleman's a pretty big guy, boxes out corners really well. I think it's going to be a long day for that particular side of the field. And I do think that Josh Allen does have his success in the air. And then he's still Josh Allen. So he's going to tear you up on the ground too. I think that this Broncos defense, this is probably the worst matchup they could have had in the entire postseason. Anybody but Buffalo, because Buffalo's kind of immune to what they do. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Bills as well.
And the point spread on that right now, it's 8.5 points. The way that Josh Allen is playing right now, I would probably skew towards that 8.5 cover for the Bills. You know, if you wanted to draw that down, maybe bring it down to 6.5, just leave it as, you know, Bills need to win by a touchdown or more. That could be a little bit more of a conservative way to play it. But the Broncos have not been a good team on the road this year. And I think that's going to be the key. Having to go to Buffalo and take on the Bills in their stadium, one of the absolute most difficult places to go and get a win in the NFL today. I just don't see that coming through. So count on the Bills. You can take the Bills spread. And then I would also look to play Josh Allen rushing yards. That would be something to consider there. You know, we know how mobile he's been on his legs. 42.5 line on rushing yards right now. If Bills, you know, run up a fairly big lead, and then it's just about running the ball to run out the clock. Josh Allen's going to be your guy for scrambling, running to get yards, you know, diving for the first downs.
And then, you know, to keep Josh Allen protected from the blitz, a lot of what Joe Brady likes to do offensively is just quick passes in the backfield. So look for James Cook, you know, in receptions at the running back position. He's going to have a really good day.
So there you have it. That is our guidance on the AFC playoff matchups for this weekend. And tomorrow we will be going through the NFC matchups. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow to catch that. And we are going to go ahead and take a break, pay some bills here. But when we come back, the Jimmy Butler saga continues. We've got more thoughts on that. So stick around. You're listening to Beat the Book here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
My name is Mary Grace. I lost my mom to Alzheimer's in 2017. 2 months after losing her, my dad was diagnosed. The earlier the diagnosis you have, the more time you have with your loved one. With my dad, now that I know what's coming, I'm able to create memories not only for him, but for myself. So when he can't remember, I'll remember for him.
For more information, contact us at alz.org or through the 24/7 helpline at 800-272-3900. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
Hey, son, what you doing?
Looking around for jobs, offices, 9 to 5. I don't want anything boring.
You know, Brian's son is in the Phoenix Police Academy. Pretty sure he's not bored.
I never thought of that.
Check out joinphxpd.com and take a look.
Over 80 specialty details like detective and canine handler. What else? Dignitary protection, 911 operator? They have aviation and dive team jobs?
Rise to serve. Find more today at joinphxpd.com. Protect and serve with the elite. Sponsored by the City of Phoenix.
Life is full of bright moments, but sometimes those moments can seem too far away. Trained and caring crisis specialists in Arizona can assist you with any situation, big or small. Free and confidential help is only one text away, day or night. Text the word HOPE to 4HOPE. That's HOPE to 44673. These moments matter, and so do you. This message is sponsored by Solari Crisis and Human Services.
Everybody's got a podcast these days. Comedy, politics, true crime, you name it. But how many actually teach you anything useful? Harmon Solar has an entertaining podcast that is vital if you've been thinking about looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Ralph and Ben explore the intricacies of utilities, equipment, processes, and more. Their primary objective is to educate and empower you to make informed decisions on your solar journey. So increase your knowledge, not your bills. Go check it out right now. It's the Harmon Solar Podcast at harmonsolar.com.
Snakes, zombies, public speaking. The list of fears is endless. But the real danger is in your hand when you're behind the wheel. Distracted driving is what's really scary and even deadly. Eyes forward, don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org, sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
1580 The Fanatic.
And at 1580thefanatic.com.
Your home for sports.
All right, we're going to get to college football here in just a little bit. Before we get there, we've got to get you this update on what's going on with the Jimmy Butler situation in Miami. And we wouldn't be talking about this except that your Phoenix Suns are absolutely involved in this because, boy, Kendrick Perkins has some stunning reporting going on that, if true, means very good for Phoenix in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes.
So the new update to this is that Kendrick Perkins is reporting from a source that he has. I suspect this source is probably James Jones directly, because the Suns have all the incentive in the world to just continue to stir this pot. But the new information here is that the Phoenix Suns are prepared to offer Jimmy Butler a 2-year, $121 million extension if they are able to acquire him from the Miami Heat. And if that were to happen and Jimmy signs on the dotted line, Kevin Durant is prepared to sign an extension with the Phoenix Suns. He very much wants to get Jimmy Butler on this team. And that really presents just some new things to consider here. First and foremost, this whole notion of, well, Kevin Durant's just going to immediately sign an extension if the Suns get Jimmy Butler. I said this to you before the show, Keon. To an extent, to me, that is kind of a backhanded admission that you don't want Bradley Beal on this team anymore. Because, and the only reason why I say that is because Kevin Durant is someone that's been in the league long enough to understand the mechanics and the logistics of pulling off a trade like this. And the only possible way that this could ever happen is in some kind of a transaction where Bradley Beal departs from the Phoenix Suns. There is literally no other way to make that work. So if that notion is going to be put out there, you know, I'm not saying that those were words spoken out of Kevin's mouth. These are coming from sources that are very close to the situation that are saying these things. But if that were the case, and if that were true, then that's also Kevin Durant acknowledging in the same statement that he really wants Jimmy Butler on this team. He also wants Bradley Beal off of it in return, because that's just the implication of acquiring Butler in this case.
Yeah, I think it's more of a case of Durant just prefers Butler to Beal. The Beal thing's just not working. And I think that Kevin, whether or not he likes Bradley Beal or not, I have no idea. I have no insight into that. I, unlike Kendrick Perkins, do not have sources in that building. But the fact is, it's not working. Like that's all it takes is, let's just try the other guy. Let's just see how it goes. Let's see what it looks like. And I also just think that when you go personality wise, what this team needs, Jimmy has more of that than Brad does.
There's no doubt about that. And, you know, I think about just the situation now, the way that it's all unfolded. The other kind of piece to all of this too is that it's now being widely reported that Jimmy Butler's just made it known to every single NBA team out there, do not trade for me. I will not sign an extension with you. And he's doing this because, you know, he's trying to skew the trade effort towards the Phoenix Suns. It's now scaring all the other teams from trying to participate in a potential direct trade for Jimmy Butler. So, you know, you're trying to kind of narrow the scope of the potential suitors out there. But this just creates kind of like a pressure cooker, you know, sort of a situation. And I went through this very thoroughly yesterday with the Phoenix Suns, where they stand on this, how their season's been, you know, what their prospects are going forward. And again, if the Phoenix Suns do nothing and they make no moves at all, that is the doomsday worst case scenario. It will not be good for this team down the road. Matt Ishbia is very, very aware of this. And I know that this team is working very diligently as much as they can to try and make this trade a reality. if you do pull off this trade, that's really the only path that the Suns have right now to improving, to, reclaiming the season, trying to build those hopes and that confidence up of, being able to compete in the postseason. That is the road that we have to go down, because the alternate route is we don't get Jimmy Butler. Bradley Beal kind of like tanks this whole effort. And what do you think this team in this locker room is like after the trade deadline if nothing happens at all? Like, does everything just get smoothed over? Like, oh yeah, like this whole thing just didn't just happen?
Because we had some texters on the text line yesterday complaining about the Suns and their lack of effort. If you think they don't give effort now, wait till you see what it looks like if this team doesn't do anything at the deadline. You're going to lose this locker room. I don't think they necessarily have a choice but to try and force the issue here. I also think this is one of those rare situations where a team has not a lot of leverage because everybody knows what they want in the Suns, but their trade partner also doesn't have a lot of leverage because everybody knows what they want. And all of the players who would be involved in the trade also kind of don't have a lot of leverage, with the exception of Bradley Beal, who's got the no trade clause. So the issue would just be to convince him that Miami's a better destination, which I don't feel like would be hard to do. Bradley Beal is not happy. He is not starting, which he wants to do. Like, that's something that is bothering him. He's never come off the bench in the 9 years of his NBA career. He's never come off the bench until now. Now he is. He has made it very clear that he's not happy about this. So I think that when you look at what all parties involved could get out of this, I don't see how this doesn't happen just from a practicality standpoint. Now, there is obviously a version of this where Pat Riley just digs his heels in, decides he's going to be a jerk, and nothing happens. Like that could also go down too. But it could potentially work out for everybody.
I think this could end up being like the biggest challenge of Matt Ishbia's time as an owner of the Suns. And I mean, he could end up being the owner of the Suns for decades and decades like Sarver. And I don't know if he's going to run into any other kind of a situation that presents just a nuanced challenge such as this one. There's pressure from your local market, your fans, your fan base is not happy right now.
Your fan base thought they were a playoff team this year, and they're not looking like it right now. And I think that that's a fair amount of anger. That anger is coming from a real, genuine place, and you can't ignore that, nor should you.
And then you've got a team that is just, the passion is not there. The drive, the will, the hunger, it's completely gone. And this is just a very bad combination of dynamics to be dealing with, particularly when it just feels like there's only one solution and you have absolutely no control in being able to make progress towards that solution unless Bradley Beal relents and is willing to, be open to being traded to, potentially another contender. So, with that being said, the Suns do play tonight. They are at home against the Atlanta Hawks. Coming off that very, very disappointing loss to the Charlotte Hornets earlier this week. And you take a look at this line right now, the Phoenix Suns are a 6-point favorite at home. And I saw this earlier, and I just kind of thought to myself, what have the Phoenix Suns done lately to deserve being a 6-point favorite in this game? Like, is this line truly based on how this team is performing? Or is this an effort from odds makers to get you to buy into the star power of Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal? And if you don't think it's the latter, then what I would recommend for you is go back, look at the Suns' last 5, 6, 7 games, take a look at where the line was pregame, and then take a look at the result. And what you're going to see all 7 games is the final result, whether the Suns won or lost, the actual margin was nowhere near where the line was set before the game. So if that trend continues coming into this one, and if you recall, the Suns were a 4.5-point favorite going into that game in Charlotte, where they lost by 11. Suns are a 6-point favorite here. Do not count out the Atlanta Hawks. Like, it pains me to come on the radio and tell the public that you should bet against the Phoenix Suns. Like, I hate doing that, and I honestly tried to avoid doing that for as long as I could. But, I try to be objective on this show. And compared to some other guys up the dial who can't really speak about this with the honesty that it deserves, we don't have shackles like them. And my top priority for the fourth dimension and anyone listening here is to try and help give you a bet that's going to make you some money. So that being said, I'm leaning more towards the Hawks tonight. And if you don't want the juice on the money line, consider them on the spread. You could push the spread to plus 10.5 if that makes you sleep a little bit better. It's going to cover. This Phoenix Suns team right now is miserable. And there's also an argument to be made that they're kind of incentivized to lose right now. Losing drives this whole thing more towards a trade than winning does. And if Jimmy Butler's your only hope at reclaiming this season, why do you want to do something that's going to pull you further away from that?
And he didn't have a great game last game, but if Bradley Beal goes out and plays well again, that's also good for the situation, because it means, I mean, either way, if he doesn't play well, then he's more likely to be frustrated. The no trade clause is more likely to be movable. But if he's playing well, that is more enticing for Miami to pull the trigger on this trade rather than have Jimmy essentially walk for nothing.
Well, and in this case, with the Suns right now, and it pains me to say this, but I did say this to you before the show, this whole thing has to get worse before it's going to get better. And this is where every single loss kind of, compounds on itself here. And there's going to be enough pressure in all areas. And even with the Miami Heat, I know they're saying, hey, we're willing to, just let him walk. And we really like the cap flexibility. I know they're saying all that stuff, but Jimmy Butler is going to make their life a living hell if he comes back to that team. And every single day he's playing a game, he's getting a mic put in his face after the game. He knows how to push buttons that are going to drive them crazy.
Well, that's why they suspended him in the first place, was because he was pushing those buttons. They didn't like it. They knew he was going to push those buttons, so they set it up beforehand so that they could have a quote unquote reason to suspend him. And I mean, I don't know how long that suspension is going to hold for, but he's got a strong case, and he's going to make it if he gets a chance to be in front of a microphone or in front of a reporter to say it.
Matt Ishbia, I don't know if you're listening right now. Please do whatever it takes to get Jimmy Butler. We're all depending on you.
So there you have that. And we were going to get into a little college football. We'll try to get to that on the other side. But on the text line, Baker's Cocky Hens with a comment and a question. First, the question. He said, is there going to be a sport trade contest this week still?
Yes. Tune in tomorrow.
We'll give you the details on that. Obviously, we won't be doing the Cardinals, but we'll pick a game for you. I think you'll like it. And then we'll go ahead and have that done, but we'll let Alex Kane announce that tomorrow on the show. And then the comment was Hawks money line with Durant under 26.5 is juicy at plus 385. I mentioned Durant because an online handicapper put out stats showing that he has scored 20 in 10 straight. Those 10 out of 10 props always end up being fool's gold. Fade the quote unquote lock. What do you think about that?
I'm on Hawks money line. I like Durant to score tonight. And I only say that because the Atlanta Hawks are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. And then they're second in the NBA in pace. So it's kind of similar to playing like the Indiana Pacers, where the emphasis in their whole game plan is on pushing offense, pushing tempo, getting as many possessions as possible. And if we, give some shots up at the other end, that's just kind of like the cost of doing business. That's how the Atlanta Hawks roll. The other piece to this too is the Hawks do not have Jalen Johnson tonight. And if he were to play, he'd probably be the primary defender on KD. So without him there, they're not really going to have anyone that matches up that well with him. It could be Clint Capella from time to time, trying to block his shots, or possibly
good luck with that, because KD's got handles still.
If anything, and I said this to you before the show, Keon, I would actually look to play props on the Hawks big men, Capella and Onyeka Okongwu. And the reason why is because the Suns do not protect the paint right now. And go back and look at the Charlotte box score from last game.
Honestly, I'd rather not. I just ate.
Nick Richards, Mark Williams, they both did very, very well against us. I think the Hawks center combo is an even better one tonight, and we are primed to get taken advantage of in the paint.
So there you have that. Robert from Surprise says, looks like they canceled the Laker game. Do you think they'll move the Vikings and Rams game? And I do. I actually think they'll move that game for a couple of reasons. One, either the Fire is going to be close enough to that area that you just can't play the game there, or B, even if the Fire doesn't wind up close to SoFi, what else do you need for an NFL game, really? You need security. Oh, that's the police. You need EMTs on site in case a player gets injured, in case a fan gets injured, someone who's going to be able to leave and go to the hospital right away. Those people are needed elsewhere right now. You know where they're not needed? Phoenix, Arizona, Glendale, Arizona. Go play the game there. I think they will actually move the game. They've announced it. Usually the league doesn't tell you where the new game is going to be played until the last second. The fact that they've told us this early tells us that I think that they are feeling the pressure of having to move that particular football game. It's not a great look to take the EMTs and the police away from what they need to be doing right now. So we're going to go to break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the picks for today, maybe a little college football as well. That's on the other side. Beat the Book 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Sports betting apps are not created equal. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here to talk about the Sport Trade Advantage. With higher payouts, Sport Trade is the ultimate sports betting experience. Sport Trade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's changing in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus minus 108 odds, then Sport Trade is for you. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. And if you're an experienced bettor and prefer American odds, you'll get pricing closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110, coupled with instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. So download Sport Trade today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
Shop now at the Home Depot and get up to 35% off select appliances. Plus, save up to an extra $400 on select appliances like Frigidaire. From the stainless steel French door refrigerator with crisp steel drawers to keep produce fresh longer, to the 5-burner electric range that lets you cook more at once and get meals on the table faster. Right now, get up to 35% off select appliances like Frigidaire. The Home Depot. How doers get more done. Pricing valid January 9th through January 29th. U.S. only. See store online for details and minimum purchase required.
All right, so there we were, cruising through the new open-air zoo when I realized that the park was closing in like 15 minutes. That's when the afternoon took an exciting turn. Luckily, we were in my Nissan Rogue. With its powerful DC turbo engine, well, we had more than enough time to see all the animals. Whoa! And outrun a few!
Drive the Nissan Rogue. Now, Nissan offers 6 vehicles starting under $30,000 MSRP. Shop at your local Nissan store or at nissanusa.com. 2024 Nissan Altima, Kicks, Leaf, Rogue, Sentra, and Versa. All prices are manufacturer's suggested retail price. Manufacturer's suggested retail price excludes destination and handling charges, tax, title, license, and options. Dealer sets actual prices.
Looking for a gift for your kids or loved ones? Consider getting them something they'll use for the rest of their lives, an education. Open an AZ 529 education savings plan today. Contribute just $50 a month, and they'll have nearly $20,000 by graduation. Plus, your money grows tax-free and can be used for college, vocational school, or workforce training. An AZ 529 account will help them unwrap their full potential. Learn more at az529.gov.
This message is sponsored by the Office of the Arizona State Treasurer.
Your home for sports.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
All right, let's wrap this bad boy up. We got a little bit of college football to get to. The playoffs are back. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish taking on the Penn State Nittany Lions tonight. We'll get to the Ohio State Buckeyes and Texas Longhorns there tomorrow, but we'll start with Notre Dame and Penn State because I think that this game is obviously going to be one of the more tight games that we've seen in the college football playoffs so far. You know, we've had a lot of games, we've had some shootouts, we've had some blowouts, but this one feels like we've got a defensive battle coming straight ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, you take a look at the line right now on this very, very narrow line here. Notre Dame is currently a 1.5 point favorite at FanDuel. And I'm pretty sure when we looked at this like earlier this week, we did just like a very quick glance. I want to say that Penn State like was favored by 1, and then it looks like it flipped.
Yeah.
So I mean the sentiment on this game, it's all around. Everyone's really feeling the same way. It's basically a pickup. I personally am leaning a bit more towards Notre Dame, and my argument for this isn't going to be something very deeply analytical. Just me personally, I don't really like the path that Penn State took to get here, and I don't feel like they have played as high of level of competitor in their opponents as what Notre Dame has had to face to get to this point. These are both two very, very good defenses going at it. It's just going to boil down to, whose quarterback, whose offense is, going to be able to, do a little bit better and get more on the board. And I really like the way Riley Leonard's playing right now with Notre Dame. I'm leaning more towards Notre Dame on this. I like them on the money line.
Yeah, it's funny because you can make an argument either way for both of these teams, and they're probably the same argument because I don't like the path that Notre Dame took to get here as well. And I'm going all the way back to the regular season because they both had weak matchups coming into the playoff. You can talk about, Penn State getting the opportunity to take on Boise State, for instance, and SMU. Like those were two of the weaker teams that made it, obviously. But when you look at Notre Dame, they took on an Indiana team that was pretty good, but really punching above their weight class, overachieving this year, took that team apart, and then got an injured Georgia team, and specifically missing Carson Beck, the quarterback, which made their entire offense go. And now you're playing a true sophomore, a redshirt sophomore in the game. Like, I think that like those two things kind of balance out. So when I look to the regular season, like I just don't know what Notre Dame really has done a lot of. It's not a particularly academic look at this either, to be honest. But I think Drew Aller has done enough for Penn State. I like the way that they run the football as well. I'll take Penn State in this game, and I'll also look at the under in this game because I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of scoring. Two great defenses, two not particularly tested offenses. I like the defenses to really shine in this.
Well, and that actually seems to have started to kind of present itself a little bit more. The deeper you go into this 12-team playoff, these games more than likely are going to get more and more defensive. You take a look at the line on the over-under for this game, over-under 45.5. And, the way that the line is priced, it's leaning towards the under. But, just the way that both of these teams' defenses have been playing lately, I mean, who knows what kind of offensive production we're going to get. I would definitely bet this game as if it's going to be a defensive one. And I mean, even just looking at the last two games that each of them played, against Georgia, 33 total points scored. And then for Penn State against Boise State, 45. So if you want to take that line right where it's at 45 and just take the under, I mean, both of these teams technically covered that in their last games. If you want to look to, maybe just raise it, give yourself a little bit of breathing room. I mean, you could still take an under at 50.5. That's minus 205. You might be able to leverage that leg in a parlay. That could be something you take a look at as well. I know we wanted to try and get into the Ohio State and Texas game. I think we're probably better off leaving that for tomorrow. That's when the game takes place anyway. So I do just want to shout out one other opportunity within the NBA tonight. We obviously talked about the Hawks and the Suns, but do not sleep on the Portland Trailblazers and the Dallas Mavericks game. I know that that's something that isn't going to be that sought out here in Phoenix, Arizona. But when you take a look at both of these teams right now and the way that this line is priced, there is absolutely an opportunity to back the Portland Trailblazers in this game. The Dallas Mavericks are still playing without Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. They are 1-5 in their last 6 games. And then you take a look at the Portland Trailblazers. They've been very competitive lately. They're not getting blown out. They're not losing by 10 plus points, every single game. They just actually came off a very good win against the Pelicans. And now they're taking on a very shorthanded Dallas team tonight. They've already played them 3 times this season. This will be their first time playing them with no Luka, no Kyrie. I think the Trailblazers come into Dallas looking to get a win tonight. You can take the Trailblazers on the money line plus 250, or Just take them on the spread, +8. That's all I got, Keon.
And that'll do it for us. One quick look at the text line, and Bat Flipper says, I live on the west side, Keon. Police are always needed here, to which I will say, yeah, but there's not an emergency going on there, Bat Flipper. They do the Hawks game, or they do the Cardinals games all the time. Devil Hawk basically asked about the Suns and the Hawks. He wants to know if we should take the Suns. Dylan already answered that. He's taking the Hawks. I'm sorry to tell you that. Bullseye says I'm wrong. His Priest wants him to take Notre Dame. I disagree with you, Priest, on many things, including that.
I'm Bridget Condon with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. The Eagles could have quarterback